Welcome to another episode of the Wholesale Elite Podcast. I am Isham joined by my main man, Mr. Tanner Santucci. What's up, dude?
Let's get it going, man. I'm excited for this episode.
Yes, me too. This is a get, guys. If you're not looking at the screen and you're just listening, we have a gentleman who I'm sure you've heard of. If you're in the Astro community, if you're in the PBJ community, if you've listened to Wholesale Inc., odds are you've probably heard this gentleman's name. We're joined by none other than the LandShark himself, Mr. Brent Bowers. What's up, dude?
Guys, I'm like honored here. You know, you're like pumping me up. My head just got so much bigger. I'm excited now. This has been a great day so far.
Oh, I mean, when we reached out and you graciously said you would be on. I mean, we legitimately, Tanner and I celebrated. Like, I wish I could show our text. Like, dude, we got it. This is awesome. So, man, we're happy to bring a ton of value to the listeners and to the viewers of our podcast. And I would like to start off, man, by you just kind of giving a little rundown of your backstory. You know, I know you spent some time in the Army, and then, you know, you eventually transitioned to real estate, but I'd like to go a little deeper, man. I'd like to know a little bit more about your origin story, where you're from. Who is this entrepreneur that's on the screen and that we're listening to right now? Where'd you start? Take it away.
Boy. Well, I wasn't preparing to cry for this episode, but I grew up in a small town called Okeechobee, Florida. Our biggest producer of income is feeder calves, basically cattle. So went to a small high school. You know, it was that awkward, you know, kid growing up, and you know, I remember my dad used to pick me up from daycare, and my parents were absolute hard-working people. My dad never missed a day of work. My mom would work all day and then come home and cook dinner for us. I don't even know how she did it, and still kept the house clean. But, you know, growing up, like going back to my dad picking me up from daycare, some of the earliest memories, like we'd hear that old car coming for miles away because it was like, there was like no exhaust pipe. We'd get in, and this is back before car seats and stuff. I'm not super old, but, we would drop beer cans right out of the floorboard in the car. Like, we'd have to lift the floor mat and just drop it right in the road. So growing up, I'm like, you know, one day I'm going to be rich, like, you know, and I will say I was a little embarrassed of that car.
Sure.
But me and my sister always had everything we ever needed. So I got that background. My parents are still together today. High school sweethearts. That's success in my eyes. We were just camping out on my parents' property that they worked so hard to get. They built a nice house on 21 acres, and they had 5 of their grandchildren running around this weekend while we were out there camping in their woods. So that's kind of how I grew up. I started a lawn service in middle school. I borrowed the neighbor's mower to mow someone else's lawn, and then got my real estate license in 2007, bought that first rental property in 2007. 2008 happened for me. I got my teeth kicked in as far as like in the market. It was just, I was getting beat up. So I went from business owner, real estate agent, rental property, married, to moving in my wife's parents' house, my in-laws' house, 900 square foot house, you know, 4 adults, 1 child, because I couldn't pay my rent anymore. And I was super humbled. So I was like, hey, what's an easier career path than real estate? So I joined the military because I was thinking, I'll go back to school and reset. Well, I reset all right. A couple of combat deployments to Afghanistan. Finally, 2013, the Army pulls me out of Afghanistan and sends me to college. And I start house hacking, and then I start wholesaling houses. I'm honored to be on the Wholesaling Elite podcast. I start wholesaling houses to pay for college courses at Florida Tech. And here's how I did it. I would pull up the notice of default list or the list pendants pre-foreclosure on I think it was called something different besides PropStream back in that 2013. I forget what it was. But anyhow, I would go and knock on these doors, and if no one answered, I would leave a sticky note and drive away. Well, I did 2 wholesale deals like back to back on just a couple sticky notes. Then That first marriage didn't work out because the Army just had me away a lot on my second deployment. That ended. So I was kind of resetting in 2013, met the woman of my dreams, who I'm married to today. We have 3 children now. So we moved to Colorado Springs in about 2015 timeframe. We're married, just newly pregnant, and the Army's got me back in full swing. I'm like working 13-hour days. I can't wholesale houses anymore. It's just too much work. But I was starting to see history repeat itself with the military. Like I was working so many hours training for my that deployment, living in the field. I was just like stressing out because I'm just tired of being away all the time. So I heard about a guy flipping land on a podcast, just like Wholesaling Elite podcast. And I was like, if he can do that, I can do that. That sounds way easier than houses. So I started in early 2016, ultimately got me out of the military in 18 because I was making about $9,000 a month in just payments on land. And I haven't looked back since.
Dude. Okay. So this was 2016. You said you made a decision to start flipping land.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I was struggling with the wholesaling houses game. I was sending so much mail and I wasn't getting much because I didn't have time to go and build rapport with the seller. What does that even mean? It means you don't go there and try and get a contract in 5 minutes and leave.
Right. So it was more or less a time thing when you gave wholesaling houses, essentially, because the military taking away that time. So that's ultimately why you left that behind. Is that right?
Well, I got a lot of excuses. I sucked at sales. It was time. It was also the follow-up I wasn't doing. There was a lot of competition for houses in Colorado Springs in early 2015. So I say it was a time, but it was really a plethora of things. It was also so competitive. I couldn't afford to send out 7,000 letters or postcards to get one deal that would maybe make me $10,000.
So when you pivoted to land, what was your initial strategy? Like, obviously you're not going to do the same thing that you failed, that, you had failure with and on the wholesaling houses side. What did you do differently on the land side in the very beginning?
Well, I like to say there was strategy. I'm one of those people you give me so there's 2 types of Army officers. There's ones that write the operation order. It's like super long things that's just so hard. And there's the ones that can follow it and implement it and execute it. I'm the executor. I'm not the writer by any means. I don't create the program. So I didn't really have a strategy, but I had this white postcard that I was sending to all the houses. And I was also mailing the tax delinquent list, and I was only mailing the houses. So I was like, wait a minute, why don't I just mail the land that's in tax delinquent? And I thought it was a tax delinquent list, but it was actually the county held tax lien list. And let me just tell you what that means is the land sucked so bad. It was not buildable, not accessible, too small to build on, landlocked. And these people that are multiple years behind on their taxes and no tax lien investor is paying the back taxes. So that's why it's called the county held tax lien list. They get a letter saying, I'll buy your land. Call me, text me. My phone blew up. And I had never seen that with houses. I mailed 687 letters to the county held tax lien list. And the first one, the guy's like, yeah, just take the land, $285, it's yours. I'm a retired CPA. I traded it many years ago. I've been paying the back taxes. $285, it's yours. I was like, wait a minute, what's the catch? Well, I drove out there and looked at it on a weekend, had no clue what I was doing, called the real estate office. The realtor made an offer to me on the phone. It actually took a couple phone calls, so I'm paraphrasing this, but she's like, she buys it for $5,000 on Wednesday. It's Saturday. So I go and pay the seller on Tuesday to get a quit claim deed, no title search. And I'm being an idiot here. Like I already had multiple rentals and I forgot everything I knew because I was like, oh my God, I'm going to buy this thing for $285 and make $5,000. Well, that $5,000 was going to pay my one of my credit cards off. So that's all I was thinking about. And then just so on and so on. So there was no strategy.
So how? Go ahead, Isham.
Oh, understandable. So when I first heard about land, probably a year ago, my initial thought, I would imagine, would be more like most people, obviously infill lots, things like that. And to anyone who doesn't know, infill lot is it's a vacant vacant lot in a neighborhood. It's obviously buildable usually. But my thought was land. I grew up kind of in an area of Florida, Fort Walton Beach, Florida, that maybe is like Okeechobee, where it's kind of mixture of town and farm, and it's just random. And so when I think of vacant land, I either think of these big commercial spots that are millions of dollars, or just this random rural stuff, right? So you said you found, in the beginning, you found this land that was unbuildable and just all these criteria that made it less valuable. What did your buyer do with that? Because that was my concern is, man, if I lock up this piece of land, who the hell's going to buy it? Infill lot, obviously a builder will buy it, but this random stuff, who will buy it? But you've since built a massive business, acquiring this type of land. Can you tell us a little bit about the mindset of what gave you the confidence to know that you could sell that land?
Yeah, no, thank God for that realtor, because I didn't know who would buy that. And luckily, I'm telling you, it was a gift from God. I got so lucky. I was leaving there, me, my wife, my newborn baby, Michael Jessier, one of my Army officer buddies, was like, I'm going to look at this, because he was in the stocks. He's like, there's no way you're buying a piece of land for $285. So come with me. So luckily because I called that realtor and I was like, I had no clue what this is worth. It's on Lake Avenue in Palmer Lake, Colorado. She goes, oh yeah, I'm familiar with that street. Oh, great. What do you think the blowout price is? What do you think the 30-day blowout price is? I need to get it done now price, because I can't leave $285. I didn't tell her what I was paying, because I can't leave my money into this deal. I had diapers to buy. It was like expensive time for a second lieutenant that just moved across the country with a new baby, new house. And I'm broke, and I got to pay off Amex and Capital One. I didn't even tell my wife I was getting into this land thing. So she just kind of rode out there with me. She kind of figured it out. She's not stupid, but, so there was no confidence. That's why I had to go look at it. That's why I recommend people start in your own backyard, like a 2.5 hour radius, because you're gonna be like, what's the catch? And when you get to this land, you're like, oh, wow, this is looking the Pike National Forest. So that realtor goes, I don't know about the 30-day blowout price, but I think you can sell it for about 10 grand on the MLS. I was like, that's all I needed to know. Thanked her for her time. I said, I'll call you back when I own it. And she calls me back while I'm trying to tell my wife what she just told me. And she goes, hey, Brent, what if I made an offer on this land? I was like, sure. What are you offering? She said, $5 grand. And I'm a really good salesman. I was like, send me the contract. So I did no negotiation whatsoever. She said, I'll buy it Wednesday. And I was like, you mean like 4 days from now? And that was it. That's what gave me the confidence. And what did she do with it? She sold it later on for almost 15 grand. So she just flipped it too. One day, the city's going to build a second ingress and egress. That's the reason why the land wasn't buildable. There was only one ingress, egress, and the fire marshal would not allow people to build on that road. Well, one street down, they're selling $800,000 houses. So if you just pay 10% of what that land's, or if you sold a house for 800, if a builder paid 10% for the land, that's $80,000 for that lot. The second parcel was about the same thing. It was surrounded by state land. And that one I was interested in. It was actually just a half mile down the street from NORAD, surrounded by mountain, right next to Fort Carson, Colorado. And I sold that one on Craigslist for $500 down and $400 a month. And I only paid $500 for that land. So I got my security back out of it. So there's a buyer for every piece of land. One of my students has 20 acres in the middle of two massive ranches in the state of Texas. And like, when I say massive, like one's like 6,000 acres, one's like 8,000. So that's probably not that big for Texas, honestly. Those are probably small ranches for Texas.
Right.
But he was like, what do I do with it? I've owned it for some time. No one's going to want this because you don't have access. And I was like, You're telling me that you can have 20 acres in the middle of two massive ranches that you can hunt on or do whatever? He's like, but Brent, you'd be trespassing on private property to get to it. And it's going to cost a lot of money for access. So I was like, you think that no one's like can rent a helicopter, or some people have helicopters, they can fly to their land? Like, that is going to be a gold mine for somebody, because I've actually been trying to buy something like that in Florida. So he hasn't sold it yet, but he's getting a ton of activity.
Has he
So
called the neighbors with the ranches? Because I feel like that would be the play, wouldn't it? Or am I mistaken?
That's the first people I would call. Absolutely.
Right.
The neighbors always want to buy the land that's next to them. And I shouldn't say always, but they will if you give them a deal or you offer them seller financing, or maybe they've been trying to figure out how to buy it for years, but just never took the time to figure it out.
Brent, before we dive into the a little more nuts and bolts, I wanted to kind of, I guess, put a little, listener beware out there. Because, as we were talking about a little bit before we hit the record button, wholesalers, especially in their infancy, can really easily get shiny object syndrome, and, thankfully, when I started, I heard about land, but I took some time to kind of learn more about it, because everything I heard was it's easy, it's easier. And I'm like, well, no, I'm going to go do this thing that's harder and sexier, because the flipping houses and all that, it was sexy to me. I like the idea of looking at real estate and transforming it and whatnot. But, as we said in the podcast a few episodes ago, Tanner and I pivoted our business to land, but not for the reasons of it being easier. More so, it met our end goal. Like, we want to get into development, residential and commercial development, and understanding land and really getting good at acquiring it just made more sense to us. So that's why we made the pivot. But can you talk a little bit to maybe newer wholesalers who maybe don't know much, or maybe are impressionable about the difference between wholesaling land, the pluses and the minuses, versus, real property?
Yeah, I'll say some pluses is, where it was taking me almost 7,000 postcards to get a deal. I was getting deals, a couple deals, 3 deals on, say, 1,000 letters or postcards. Wow. And, where I was making maybe 5,500 to 7,500 by wholesaling a house. And my spreads got bigger as I got more buyers on the house wholesaling. Right. And we started changing things around and trying to get the highest offer. But that really pissed a lot of people off. Right. Like, there was some very aggravated house flippers with me when they realized like they were paying like 20 grand over what I got the property under contract for. But right. The land, less competition, still making a pretty good spread. And, anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000. So sometimes bigger spreads. And it was almost like I became like an order taker for a little while. These these developers, like you guys are going to be builders. They started telling me like, look, you find an acre in this area, I'll take it. Right. And they told me their price. And most of the time it was 100 cents on the dollar. It was retail. Now, granted, that has slowed down a little bit in certain areas, not all areas, because builders are slowing down a little bit on building. But here's the thing. You're always going to have that retail buyer that wants to one day maybe build that house or have that cabin or that land to go and do some recreation stuff on. Right. So that's one of the differences between wholesaling houses and land. Another thing is I wasn't having to go and sit on a dirty, stinky couch that a cat had just peed on that week to negotiate for this piece of land. A lot of that, it's all over the phone. Like that sure. CPA and that first and that second land seller was like the only ones I ever met. Now, the rest became coming over the phone and text message, or, hey, what's even better, they send my purchase agreement that I mail them and they sign it and they send it right back to me. And I can look at the land and figure out if I want to offer less or get it. So houses was never like that. And another psychology of the house, like, just put yourself in this picture. Like, these people lived here for 25 years. They raised their family. They never painted the walls. They barely vacuumed the carpets, but they're always, they heard for all these years, your house is your investment, your number one investment. Right. And Robert Kiyosaki's like, no, it's not. But what do investments do? They increase in value. So yeah, I lived here for 25 years. We never even painted once, and the water heater's on this last leg, but I should make $1 million for this house. And it is hard to convince someone to sell their house at a discount. And I know the whole entire audience is like, Brent, if you believe that, it is hard. We get deals every day. yes, there's still deals out there. You talk to enough people, you're gonna get a deal. We're deal finders, not deal creators as wholesalers.
Right.
But land, it's like they inherited it. They've been paying the taxes for 20 something years, and they just want to recoup some of that money because they bought this land in Colorado 15 years ago, and they're going to build a cabin on it. But life happened for them. They had babies, and those babies had babies. Now they're paying for college for 3 of their grandchildren, and
Right.
they've decided not to build that cabin. And they get this letter one day, and it's like, you know what, honey? Let's get rid of this.
Right.
So let's talk about that then real quick. How exactly on these purchase agreements that you're sending via mail, how are you determining a value, or how are you getting a number to them if you haven't even really seen or talked to the seller in terms of what the lot's like? Is there utilities, on down the line? So how are you coming up with an offer price?
All right, this is where we're going to lose half your listeners, because this is
okay.
This is where we got to go to work. Okay, so I'll put the kids to bed, and I'll go to, like you mentioned, I think Fort Walton Beach, Florida. So let's just say I live in Fort Walton Beach, and I'm going to go on Zillow or Redfin, whichever you prefer. I like Redfin in some areas and Zillow in other areas. Just depends what data it's pulling. So I'm going to go Fort Walton Beach on Redfin, and then I'm going to hit the solds, and then I want to see the land solds, and then I want to see like in the last 7 days. And then I'm going to go back and exit out that Fort Walton Beach because I want to remove that boundary. I want to see Fort Walton Beach and all the surroundings. All right, not much has happened in 7 days. Let's go 30 days. Oh, wow. There's a lot of red dots. There's a lot of solds. And now I'm looking for the cluster pattern. Like when we're, sighting in our gun or our bow and arrow, you see the bullseye. I'm looking for like several solds close to each other because that's going to show me little pockets or neighborhoods that are in demand. I'm getting micro with this. Like people are like, I mail the whole entire county. You're wasting a lot of money.
Sure.
I like to walk it in. And then I'll eventually mail the whole county. So figure out where that area of demand is. And now we're going to click on every one of those, and we're going to see what the sold price is. And then we're going to see how big it is, square foot or acres. And then there's one more thing. The third thing I want to see, and I want to see who listed it and who it was bought by. If you don't see that, if you scroll down and you don't see that, that means it probably traded off the MLS. No realtor was involved. But that is very important because if you copy and paste those realtors that it was bought by and listed by, now you're going to see the land specialist realtors out there. You're going to see the guy that keeps popping up. Bill Black keeps popping up. He is the man when it comes to this neighborhood. So, all right, going back to the price and the square foot, let's say 9 out of 10 of those are 10,000 square foot lots. All right, so now I know we call them like hot zip codes in wholesaling. We now know the hot zip code. We also know the in-demand parcel size. And then it's like all 9 of those were 10,000 square foot lots, or anywhere from 9,000 to 11,000 square foot lots, apple comparison. I'm going to add the price up for all 9 of those, and then I'm going to divide it by 9. And now I know the average price per square foot. And it's really easy if you do this on an Excel spreadsheet because like you can select them all and hit average and divide the average square foot by the average prices. Now you know that it's trading for about $3 a square foot. When I say trading, I mean selling. Sure. All right. So now that lot's about $100,000. The average lot's selling for about $100,000 in this area. And I'm just making these numbers up really round. I'm not familiar with Fort Walton Beach, and stop me at any time. So good. I want to make $10,000 per land deal. Let's just say that's what I want to make. And then my buyer's going to want a $10,000 discount, right? So I can sell it quick. If I'm going to list something, if everything else is listed for 101, 103, 104, I want to be that guy that's listed at 91 because they're going to pick my land first because there's not a house compared to, okay, this one's got a pool, this one doesn't. No, it's land. It's all got trees, blah, blah, blah. So now I see that they're selling for about $100,000 average. I want to make $10,000. So, all right, I need to offer 90. My buyer needs a $10,000 discount. So I need to offer 80. My realtor is going to charge me about 6%. Let's just say 10% for round numbers. So now I need to offer 70. All right, we're going to have closing costs and title, blah, blah, title fees, insurance. Let's just figure another 2,000. So we're at like 68,000. Well, 68,000 divided by 100, that's 68 cents on the dollar. So now I see it's trading for $3 a square foot. I can multiply that times 68 cents. I don't know what that equation is, $1.60 or something like that. That's what I'm going to offer per square foot. and I blast out my letters just like that. And if anybody wants to copy that letter, go to the landsharks.com/LOL as in land offer letter, or laugh out loud because you just got a deal signed and sent back to you.
Love that.
Dude, when I heard you on a Wholesale Elite podcast a little while ago, it was the first time I'd heard of the LOL, the land offer letter, and I was blown away. The fact that you would mail an offer out to someone without even talking to them, and they would mail it back signed, like deal, done. I'm like, holy shit! Like, really? That's how easy it can be done in land.
It still surprises me.
Yeah, it's crazy the lack of emotion that's involved there. It's purely transactional.
I mean, sometimes they'll call and be like, "Are you effing kidding me? I would never sell you this." I mean, but sometimes they'll call and say, "Are you serious? Like, what's that, Tanner?"
I said those are the best.
Yeah,
right, keep going.
Yeah, I was getting it handed to me a couple days ago. I still find it fun to put my own phone number on these land offer letters from time to time. And this lady's like, "I would never sell you, or I would never buy anything from you." And I was having fun with her at this point because she was pissed. And I was like, I'm going to make her day better. I'm going to make her laugh. And she's like, "How dare you put that you're a veteran? You're a disgrace. You're a piece of blah, 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 blah." And she goes, I would never buy anything from you. And I'm like, "Ma'am, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I want to buy it from you." So she hung up, and I called her back twice, and she didn't take my calls anymore. But those are fun.
I thought the double dial worked. So the LandSharks.
It does usually.
Yeah, I know, right? LandSharks.com/LOL, and that's where you guys can get the free copy of Brent's land offer letter. How many of those do you think you've sent out so far?
Oh man, I have no clue. Geez, I've been sending about 500 a week consistent since about 2016. So I'd have to do the math on that. We send on Christmas, we send on New Year's, we send on Thanksgiving and Easter. People are always like, "Oh, don't you take a break during the holidays?" No, because most people do. So we keep sending it because that's when I want my letter to squeeze on in, which not that they're getting a lot of land offer letters, but some areas it is a little competitive. That's why I put the veteran on there. My dad, he's like, "I know the sheriff. Here's his name. Call him to get a reference." My dad will handwrite his envelopes, put his return address on there from like Wounded Warrior, how they give you those free return addresses if you donate. And then he'll put the stamp on there a little crooked. And he's crazy. Like, he could send out 50 or 60 of these and get a deal.
What are all the different marketing methods? So you've got land offer letters. I believe you said like postcards. What else do you guys do?
Yeah, I love the postcards for when it's like not homogenous and it's like, this one's selling for $150. This one's selling for $18 million. This one's selling for $400,000. Then I'll send a postcard, and it's super simple. It's we call it the handwritten postcard. If you go to the landsharks.com/postcard, I'll email it to you.
Perfect.
So tell us about now. Most people that have listened to you, they know I want to say they more or less know your strategy in which you seller finance these lots for the most part, right? So tell us on how you got into kind of picking that as your niche rather than, maybe traditional wholesale. And I'm assuming you probably still traditional wholesale lots, but it seems like your niche is that seller finance. So tell us a little bit how you got into that and what led you down that road.
Yeah, that second deal I talked about, that 4.97 acres that I trespassed on state land to get to take the photos. You only have to do it once to get the photos. The state park guy caught me. And I was like, "Look, I own land right back here." And he goes, "Well, it doesn't matter. You can't come across state land to get to it." So I took the photos and the video. I couldn't put the video on Craigslist, but I put the photos, and I was like, 500 down, 400 a month. I only sold that one for 5,000 as well, but I bought it for 500. And I explained, no access, must call an ingress egress attorney, reach out to a title company. You're going to spend a lot of money to get access. And when he does, which I think he did, the land's worth a lot of money. So that was out of fear. I figured that out of fear because I didn't want to leave my $500 into it. And it's cool. I actually got actual turkeys in my picture. So this guy was a turkey hunter.
Oh,
That's
perfect.
Nice.
so random and strange. I posted it on Saturday night. He brought me the money on Sunday. He would come to my house
Wow.
once a month and bring me cash. But that one changed my mindset. Like that was my paradigm shift, like Stephen Covey would say, because it covered my truck payment. And like I was trying to get out of the military at this time. And I was just thinking to myself, and I remember having the conversation with Emily, my wife, and I was like, we just have to do this like 10 more times. And we are financially free because we were only spending about $4,500 a month on a second lieutenant salary. And it took me 9 months to do that. I was right at 9 months, of almost $9,000 a month. And I wholesaled some to build my bank account back up because I kept running out of freaking money.
Right.
Even I was getting, and I wasn't smart enough to post this on Facebook and show what I was doing because I shouldn't say I was not smart enough. I was hiding it because Army officers in the military are not allowed to have businesses outside of the military.
Right.
So I was hiding what I was doing because I had an exit plan, but I could have raised so much dang capital. It's unbelievable. I put a post on Facebook the other day. I said I have more land deals than what I have money to do. And I just on that one post, I think there was over $1 million. People were like, I've got 100, I've got 50. And they would private message me though. So now we're doing deals. I'm looking at my wall. I got one in Tennessee, one in Miami, 17 in Tampa, 18 in Hawaii that I'm doing with other people's money. And we're charging 12% interest on this land. So here's a really cool thing. The banks have it figured out. They do these 30-year mortgages, $200,000 mortgage, 6% interest. You pay back $430,000 over 30 years. So I'm making more money in interest than I'm selling these parcels for.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow. So, I mean, if you're, let's say there's a new wholesaler and, well, let me actually ask you this. If you're new into the wholesaling land, what would you recommend? So in terms of, and what I mean by that is most wholesalers, I'm sure, as you know, that get into it always say they have no money, right? No one has money. That's why we wholesale. Right? It's a common theme. So not so much in the seller finance terms, but in the traditional wholesale of land, what do you recommend? I mean, because what we do is reverse engineer, right? Go to the developers first, find out their build. So what do you recommend, and what would you tell a newer wholesaler that wants to get into land on the best strategy to go through?
Yeah, I say that build your bank account to $25,000 or $35,000, pay off all your debt, and then start buying some of this land, for $25,000 that's worth $75,000, to 3x your money. I did it kind of the reverse opposite way out of fear. So I did that first one, which was a cash flip. The second one was a seller financing. I think the third one, I assigned the contract. And the fourth one, I got under contract with a bank for $25,000 and assigned that one for 38. So I started building that bank account, but I would wholesale one or two and then buy it, wholesale one or two, then buy one. And I've seen a lot of people come through the LandSharks community that, in the last 12 months, they've flipped $1 million worth of profit land, like literally made $1 million in profit flipping. Well, here's the thing though. They didn't build up any of that cash flow where people that think on payments. Americans think on how much is it going to cost me each month?
Sure.
Like there's trucks out there now that cost $100,000. It's just unbelievable. Well, they're not paying cash. They're paying $1,500 a month for these trucks, more than my first house payment. So going back to that LandSharks community member that has made $1 million in net profit, and now they're seeing that money slow down because they were selling to these builders, like big builders. Well, they're one of their regrets is I wish I would have done a few more passive income deals and got $5,000 or $10,000 a month coming in consistently, so I'm covered. That covers my marketing for the other stuff. So I like a kind of a mingle, like what's the word I'm looking for? Stagger, where you do a little bit of both.
Balanced. Yeah.
There you go. Balanced. It's the end of my day. Time to go to bed.
Let me ask you this then. How do you determine the value on these seller finance deals on how much you're going to ask for, monthly rent essentially? Do you kind of just come up with the number in your head? That sounds good. Or how does that happen?
No, great question. My dad and I are doing one right now. The sales price is $34,000. He's buying it, and his buyer, he's already found the buyer before he's even got to the title company. So usually in our inspection period, we'll advertise for a buyer too. So we're not like going into this blind, because the whole time is, what if I can't sell this? What if I can't sell this? We still have that fear no matter what.
Right.
Well, he's buying it for $34,000. He's under contract. His buyer has $32,000 down, and my dad's asking $42,000 what the actual land is worth. And usually we wouldn't do that deal because it's not 3xing our money. But here's why we're going to do it: is because this guy is going to pay $32,000 down. We've just had to put like $2,000 in it plus a little closing cost, and we'll be profitable roughly in 4 months. So what we ask that buyer is, look, are you willing to pay all the closing costs, the title fees, so you have insurance on title insurance? That way you're protected. He's like, heck yeah, I'll pay those closing costs. Because we told him the reason why he would want to pay title insurance fees, closing costs. So we painted it as, this is not an expense to you, but it's an investment. So when you build on this later on, no one can come and take it from you. So we asked we asked the buyer that's putting the down payment, the $32,000 down, what's an affordable monthly price for you? So he told us like $450. So we take it and go to Google and go to loan calculator and put in there that he's going to have a roughly a $12,000 note at 12% interest. And we plug in $500 a month, and it tells us what the term is. That's it.
So nothing too crazy, right? So you straight up just want to ask the buyer what he would be willing to pay monthly.
Yeah. And usually we'll put it on our website, like what we think we want. And we just usually put it out there on a 30-year term. And we still ask the buyer, what's an affordable monthly payment? And we'll play with the numbers. Like if they can only afford $399 a month and we're asking $499 a month, we won't let that buyer go. We'll lower the interest or increase the term. We won't increase it past 30 years though, just because that just seems crazy.
So what kind of lot was this specifically? I mean, was this an infill? Was this one of those landlocked kind of awkward lots? What kind of lot was this?
Infill lot. Yeah. And
so
I say infill. No, he's a private, I don't know what he does for a living, because my dad's been working with him, but he's just one of those people who has some cash, can't go to a bank and get financing. And a lot of times the banks won't finance these lots under $50,000, but it's a buildable lot. You know, he's going to need to put a septic system and well, powers at the road, and it's that easy.
Well, Brent, you've got a phenomenal community with the LandSharks, and you've been at that for a while, dude. Like, you are the guy when it comes to land, for sure. Let me ask you, like, it's now the new year, 2023. What are some of the things that you are concerned about this year, and then some of the things you're excited about?
As far as concern, it's concerning me that there's going to be a lot of foreclosures in land that people bought to build homes on. And I think they're a little bit too late if they haven't started swinging the hammers yet, because I'm now seeing developments where there's 150 homes sitting vacant, brand new, and it snowed in Colorado Springs. And for 3 weeks, there's no tracks on the snow. That's scary. That's depressing. However, that shows there's blood in the streets. And what does Warren Buffett do when there's blood in the streets? He's buying. So we're going to start seeing some deals we haven't seen in the last 2 years, because ever since COVID and this pandemic, and it made land like the really sexy thing for people to buy. Like 3 years ago, it was totally a buyer's market for land. Now we're seeing these creative financing deals where the seller's like, look, I want 60. Okay, I can give you 60, but I'm going to have to do it in payments. Okay, whatever it takes. Like, and I mean principal payments, that's aka 0% interest.
What? So it sounds like so far you've talked about you and your dad. What's your team look like? All the stuff that you've been doing, I gotta know.
Yeah. So my team is very, very small. So at one time I had 2 acquisition managers. I only have 1 right now. I just brought in another guy that he's kind of going through training. He's been doing amazing. So kind of 2 acquisition managers. I have my executive assistant that helps me with the coaching business and the land business. And we're closing down our house business because we took a bath on, and you don't hear a lot of podcasts where people talk about the money they lost. We've lost a lot of money on several houses now because we got a little bit too big for our britches, like my grandmother would say. So we started buying houses in areas we didn't know anything about. We bought like roughly 7 houses almost 13 months ago, and we had the crews lined up to do them. We're not using any of those crews anymore.
Right.
And I say crews, I mean like general contractors.
Sure.
So, geez, I lost my train of thought where I was even going with that. But my team. Yeah, that's it. And then we have Orlando. He's our land sales specialist. We are our in-house accountant, and that's it. So not a large team.
Wow,
man.
That's awesome.
What were your, if you don't mind me asking, just like business, just so the audience can get an understanding of the size and scope of what you do. What were your revenues last year?
So I'll give you a couple numbers. We pull in roughly about 26 grand a month on land. That's just for the payments. And the coaching, that's a whole nother thing.
Sure.
And then the houses, we lost money. So the land paid for the houses. Now we're basically, so here's one lesson I've learned. I've been throwing good money at bad for about a year now. And the good money is the land. So basically it works out to about 26 grand a month in payments we're receiving. That's if we don't sell or flip or wholesale a parcel of land.
Right.
So do the math, like 2.5 million. So, or that's just gross though. So
passive as well. That's not active. That's passive. That's coming in whether you do another deal or not.
Exactly.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So super inspiring. Well, dude, thank you so much. I mean, a couple more questions, but definitely want to kind of land this plane. What are some of the freedoms that wholesale or that flipping land has brought you?
I'll tell you, it allows me to do this from anywhere in the world. I don't go to the land anymore. I used to do it just because I was afraid. Then it turned into a hobby. And when I stopped was when my wife was like, when I used to come home and like, oh my God. And this was a lot of land in Colorado in the mountains. I was like, oh my God, this is going to be the place we're going to put a cabin. And like one day she's like, how many cabins do you think we need? And so I kind of stopped going about that time. So anywhere in the world you can do this. It gives me passive income, which is time freedom. This is a lifestyle business. Could I go out there and do a lot more land deals, bigger land deals, and build on this land? Yes, but that would be feeding my ego. That's why I was in the house business, because I had an ego that I was feeding. I wanted a large team. I wanted to be the number one buyer in Colorado. We started buying office buildings and apartment complexes, and it was like, what in the heck? Like, and you start getting cocky. Like anytime I get cocky or arrogant, that's when I usually make mistakes. I don't know if you guys are like that.
100%.
Absolutely.
So virtual freedom, basically geography freedom, time freedom, and financial freedom. As long as I don't spend more than 26 grand a month, we're going to be fine. So, and it's virtually, I think there's hardly any competition in this business as well. So those are some of my freedoms.
Dude, that's phenomenal. Super, super inspiring. What's one of the things you did more recently in your business that was out of your comfort zone?
Fired people that were just on salary. And so for a while there, I was really focused on coaching because I was having a really good time with it. And I still am. I have more fun coaching than I do doing another land deal because land deals are boring. However, boring makes money because it's consistent. It's predictable. You always hear like dominate one marketing strategy before you move to another. Well, what does that mean? Well, my oldest son, he's almost 7 years old. I can tell you what he's going to say during certain times of the day, when he's going to be hungry, how he's going to go to bed at night, exactly what time he's going to wake up. That is predictable analytics for my son. Well, same thing for dominating your marketing strategy. if I can tell you exactly how many mailers I send out, to how many responses I'm going to get, to how many conversions, to exactly what I'm going to make, that's dominating. Now I can move to the next one. So, that basically, going back to that question, my fear is I focus so hard on my coaching and getting my students successful. I let my business coast for a while. And you have to motivate your team. You've got to be that person, that leader, that visionary. I was motivating students and letting my team kind of flounder and just do whatever. So things go stale.
Yeah.
So I had to go in and clean house.
Was it uncomfortable firing this person because you knew their situation and whatnot? Or was it uncomfortable because of the fear of what are they going to think about me? Are they going to badmouth me out there? Like what were the fears behind that?
You mentioned a couple of them. Like, what are they going to think about me? What are they going to tell other people about me? How are they going to feed their families? And there was so much stress that I was taking like the money from the land and paying like their salaries and everything. And it's just, my wife one day was like, look, you're going to sink the ship. And I'm like, gosh, why is she so wise? Like, and everyone always asks, like, does your wife help you in the business? And I always say, no, but that's not correct, because she's kind of like the neutral third party. She's almost like my therapist, which be careful treating your spouse as a therapist. You need to have a therapist. Like eventually they're going to be like, look, you need to pay or get the heck out. But she's like, look, you're responsible for this household. And I was about to make a decision to sink the ship just to keep paying people, because I was afraid of what they're going to think about me. I was afraid of what they're going to do for income. Oh, their husband doesn't work and it's only her. So it was actually 4 different people. So it was all at once. And
incredible lesson.
Best thing I ever could have done.
Yeah. And that's, Gary Vee, he's notorious. He says this all the time. He says, hiring is guessing, firing is knowing. And usually when you have that feeling that, man, I'm going to let someone go, that's almost like any minutes that you take afterwards, not doing it, you're almost doing a disservice to your team and to that person and all this. But, there's a lot, especially if you're a high EQ person, if you actually give a damn about people, that's tough. That's really tough. And I haven't had to do that in real estate yet. But I've done it in the past, and yeah, it's never a good feeling. So, was that your first time firing someone?
No, not my first time, but first time firing like 4 people at one time. And ultimately I stopped marketing in certain areas. And
Gotcha.
it was a huge blow, because I thought I had failed, and, my ego took a hit. And my wife, once again, super wise, because I was like, man, I failed. And she's like, you think it? And this was right in the time when Amazon sent that email and like fired like 3,200 people. And she's like, do you think big businesses don't fire people? And I was like, oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah.
So it was just like part of business. So
dude, your wife's a gangster. I love it.
Yes, she is. Yes, she is.
So what if you could go, if someone offered you an opportunity to go on stage and give a story of a deal that you did in land that would just inspire people to really strongly consider, the land business, what's that story?
I already told 2 of them. I can talk about the one we just did last week. And it was actually, we sent out that land offer letter. And this is one of those slow burn type ones where we had to fix title issue after probate, after blah, blah, blah. The land was worth about $90,000. We offered 40. The lady signed it. Well, it goes to title and they're like, hey, there's a mobile home in this property. Like, oh, so we call the seller. She goes, yeah, my son lives in it. Well, is he like okay with you selling it? Yeah, he wants to buy it, but he doesn't have 40 grand. You guys figure it out. So we call the son. He's like, yeah, I'll buy it. But I need to make payments. And we're like, well, that's what we do. So what can you pay down? He's like, I could give $5,000 down. What can you pay a month? He's like, I could pay $900 a month, and sent us his check stubs. No problem. We didn't even ask him for it. Wow. So we had the cash about a year ago whenever we started negotiating this deal. And like 2 weeks ago, it's like, oh, time to close. And I was like, well, geez, I just bought this, that, and the other, and I'm getting rid of these 2 flips that still are going to cost me money or we're losing money on. So again, hire a CFO and do the profit first system. Sure. Anybody listening to this, implement profit first and a CFO sooner than later, like before you start making money, because it's crazy what you can have by just putting away a few pennies, like a few percent. So I was like, well, dang, I need 40 grand. So I called my mother-in-law, and I knew they had some money they wanted to lend, 9% interest. I was like, I'll give you 9% interest. We already have a buyer for 90,000, and he's going to pay me 9% interest. So mother-in-law lends all the money, no money out of pocket, to buy this property. And we thought it was worth 90. It's actually worth like 140 with the mobile home. So mother-in-law is in a good position. She's only lending 40 on something that's worth 140. So she's covered as a lender. And we call the buyer, say, okay, sign the contract for deed. He sent us the $5,000 down. He's paying $946 a month. So it actually works out, because he's got a 13-year mortgage. It works out to $926 a month. We charge a $20 note service fee. So we're collecting $946. And my mother-in-law, her payment is $830 a month. That way she can be paid off in 5 years. And then after that 5 years, we're going to keep the whole $946 a month. So we collected $5,000 down, and we're keeping about $115 a month for the next 60 months. So that works out to about $6,800. So $5,000 plus $6,800. And then once my mother-in-law is paid off, she's going to have $40,000. She's going to want to invest again, by the way. Right. And we're going to keep the whole $946 a month for the remaining 8 years, which is 96 months. So that's a little over $101,000 net profit on a deal that took none of my own money. Wow. And people are asking, like, because I broke this down on a support call with some of my LandSharks, and they're like, oh, did you do a prepayment penalty? No way. Why would I ever encourage someone not to pay that property off? Because the difference between 40 and 90, that's like 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. I'm not the best with math, by the way. That's why I have an in-house accountant. Right. So I would rather get my $50,000 profit ASAP rather than wait 13 years for it. And how cool would it be if I paid mother-in-law off in like 1 year rather than 60 months, 5 years?
For sure.
So that's my favorite deal right now.
Dude, yeah, no kidding. Man, well, last question for me. I'm just curious. What is your superpower, Brent?
I just take action. Like, I already mentioned it. Like, I heard it on a podcast. This guy's buying land and flipping it overnight and doubling his money. I was like, well, shoot, if he can do it, I can send out these postcards, and just figured it out, kept figuring it out. And the thing was, I found success too quick in it. And I started making mistakes after that because I was getting arrogant. So my superpower is just taking action. If I got to hire someone to take that action, because eventually you run out of time, and then you'll hire enough people to help you, and then you'll run out of time managing them. So it's just taking action, even if it's other people taking action.
Man, okay. So if there's any wholesalers out there that have land deals or come across land deals, do you want them to send them your way? Can you do anything with other people's deals?
Oh yeah, I'll tell you that Hawaii deal is actually one of my LandShark students actually, but she was like, "Hey, how do I get funding for this?" And I was like, "I can get funding. Yeah, send it my way." So, and I'll tell you, I'm being very conservative on what I'm buying right now. Sure. So I can't promise you we'll do a deal together, but yeah, I have people sending me deals all the time. I've had people reach out that, have 150K and they want 10% interest on, or 9% like mother-in-law, and we'll put their funds to work and we put them as a first lien. So they're protected, and we try and be below 50 cents on the dollar. So yeah, we're doing deals all the time, and just marrying these things. Like those Hawaii lots I mentioned, we're buying those for $87,000, and we should sell them all for about $390,000 because we're going to sell them individually.
Incredible. Does someone need to be in the LandSharks in order to send you a deal?
No way. Just hit me up on Instagram, Brent L. Bowers.
Awesome, brother. And where else can people find you?
You know what? I'm trying to build my TikTok, Brent L. Bowers 1. I'm putting out a video a day on how to do land deals, and just really growing that. TikTok's been fun.
Dude, I bet it's going to be amazing. One thing, so this is a longer form interview, but I love your content, man. Like your energy is great. You're very to the point with your information, And I really do appreciate your content. So thank you, man, for being an energetic force out there and someone who's willing to share stuff that people that have a scarcity mindset would probably hold back. You're giving away the game, and your community, as I said, is huge, and it shows. They're very supportive of each other, and they love being in that community. So kudos, man, to you for all you've done. And thank you so much, Brent, for your time. Tanner, you got anything in closing, man?
No, well, first of all, thank you for your service. I didn't say that earlier, so appreciate you for that. And obviously want to thank you for your vulnerability on this episode, specifically, talking about some of the things that aren't always the best in business. So just wanted to take the time to thank you for that, because not everyone does that. So
no, I appreciate you guys very much. And I'll tell you, those LandSharks, the community really pumps me up. Every week I do a support call with them, and we always start off with a win first. Like before, like someone speaks, is like, hey, here's my win today. I got a piece of land under contract today, and I already have a buyer locked up. I'm going to make $4,000. I can pay those student loans off. Like those type things, like pump me up and make me want to stay up late that night and go pick another land market.
Dude, that's awesome. Well, Brent Bowers, go check him out, thelandsharks.com. And then you, of course, /LOL. What was the other resource?
Postcard. Yeah.
Postcard.
Postcard.
And then on the socials, we'll definitely have his information in the show notes and in the description on YouTube. So Brent, again, thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to meeting you. Where do you live, by the way? Do you live in Colorado?
No, I'm on the East Coast of Florida.
You are
not far from you. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'm actually I'm up in Alaska, but Tanner is I live in Alaska. Tanner lives in Oklahoma, but Florida's our market, and that's my home state. So we'll be down there next month, man. So hopefully maybe we can come shake your hand.
Heck yeah, let's do it.
Absolutely. Well, guys, thank you again for tuning in, and stay tuned for the next episode. It's been a good one. Brent, again, thank you for your time, man. And we'll see you around, brother.
Catch you later.
What up, Elite fam? That's a wrap for today's episode. But look, if you got value out of the show today, do us a huge favor and give us a review or give us a like or subscribe. Do all the things to help us get the word out there. And look, we want to see you on the next show. So get out there and crush it, make it happen. Stay tuned for the next episode. Peace.